about his career. We're going to touch upon his father, which is a very, very interesting story. I met his father maybe a couple of years ago, and I just fell in love. And I fell in love with the story. And if anybody never heard about the Senior Olympics, can you touch upon that a little bit for us?
Well, my father, Charles Maudlin Sr., was one of his favorite pastimes was participating in, they used to call it the United States Olympic Association, but then they changed the name, the National Senior Games Association. It's really a national organization which promotes physical activity in senior citizens, and they define senior citizens as being 50 years and older. When my father started participating back, I believe he started back in 1991 after he retired. He was about 65 years old or so. And he started participating in bike riding and shuffleboard, but he eventually got into track and field. And he was very accomplished. Being from Indiana, he was the most decorated Senior Games Association recipient in the entire state of Indiana, and he actually holds 4 National Senior Games records to this date.
And what age was that?
He set those records for men above 80. See, he was about, I think he was about 81 when he set those records, 81, 82.
You hear that? 81, 82. And he was doing track and field.
Track and field. He set the records for the 100 meter, 200 meter, 400 meter, and the long jump.
Wow.
For men over 80 years old.
Wow.
In his age range.
You know, I was reading something in here. And how did he really get started? I mean, with the practicing.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, it's interesting. My mom used to drive him. We grew up in Newcastle, Indiana. There's a little town called New Lisbon, which is near the birthplace of the Wright brothers. And my mom would drive him. I believe it's 9 miles out from where we lived. She would drive him out and then drop him off. He'd say, "Okay, well, let me off here." You know, she thought he was crazy. You know, and he would run back home 9 miles. But not only would he run back home 9 miles, he would actually run around the park, which is a mile around, a couple times, you know, when he got back. So
for extra measure.
For extra measure, right. And sometimes he'd run backwards, you know.
I've seen him do that.
Right.
Run backwards. I tried to walk with Charles, his father, one day, and I thought I was going to get a brisk walk, and all of a sudden he turned around backwards and off he went.
Right.
Yeah.
People, you know, it was deceiving. I mean, you know, he was 85, you know, and people, he would fool people, you know, walk real slow, act like he was really stiff, and then he would just sprint and take off, you know. Couldn't keep up with him. You know.
That's interesting. 9 miles. 9 miles. That's, I have a hard time doing 4 or 5, you know.
Right.
Wow. And now he was honored by the Veterans of Administration, his high school diploma.
Well, my dad went into the Navy when he was 17 years old in 11th grade to enter World War II. He was in good standing in high school. He would have graduated, but he didn't graduate because, you know, at that time it was paramount that you enter into the service to you know, not only serve your country, but you have to understand, you know, they're just coming out of the Great Depression, and it was a way for him also to support his family. Actually, he could support his family by going away and then sending back, you know, some resources.
Right.
So he was in the Navy for 7 years, and he came back out of the Navy, went to work in a factory, and, you know, did a number of jobs throughout his career. But in 2003, the Veterans Administration actually awarded him with his high school diploma. And he marched in a cap and gown with the graduating class from Newcastle Chrysler High School. Actually, he was the first person to march, and he received his diploma presented to him by Richard Leach, who was also a veteran. And it was very moving because Mr. Leach gave him a salute, and my dad saluted him back. But that was actually very important to him to receive that diploma, because his entire life, because he had not received his diploma, he always it was something that always kind of concerned him, that, you know, he needed to have that diploma to prove to people that you know, he was deserving. of their respect. I think, also you have to look at the times in which he grew up, Jim Crow laws, segregation, and the theme growing up at that time is that if you were a black man, you weren't worthy. And so a lot of the black men in his generation, they grew up with the perception that they always had to prove themselves,
And
as
that
worthy
is
to society.
that is so correct.
Right.
Yeah, the black men did have to prove themselves back in those
Right.
days like that. Yes, you're right. Now, I see here too, he was recognized by the Senator Richard Lugar
Oh, sure.
and the former president, Mr. George Bush. Is that the father Bush?
No, the younger
Okay.
younger Bush. In terms of recognizing him for his accomplishments in the National Senior Games Association. Actually, my father was the torchbearer for one of the Indiana State Olympics. The way the system works is you have state games, and if you compete and if you're successful and if you finish high in the state games, then you qualify to go to the national games. And so Richard Lugar was the Indiana State Senator, and he recognized my father, actually made him torch captain for one of the state championship events. And, that was very moving to my father to be recognized in that fashion. And he also received a letter from, President Bush acknowledging his accomplishments as a senior Olympian.
That's wonderful. And all from this man who wanted and deserved recognition.
And again, it's my father always taught me that black men have to work extra hard to really prove themselves. Because, again, and a lot of people in society today may not understand where he was coming from, but if you go back to the times and the position that black men had in society, it was a constant struggle. It wasn't easy.
And I bet you a lot of elderly men that's living today
Right.
could have testified to that.
Exactly. But the fact of the matter is, very few black men live to be 85 years old.
You're absolutely right.
Right.
80 anything today is
Right.
good,
Oh, exactly.
And President Obama, did he get recognition for him also?
Well, no, actually, President Obama had just come into office. He hadn't been in office that long, before my father passed. He passed back on August the 13th, 2010. And, he had some Alzheimer's there in the end. And so my father really never had a full appreciation of the fact that
We had a
black president, I told him, but, it didn't really, he didn't really appreciate it, if it had not been for the Alzheimer's.
Wow. Then I see the records, from what I'm understanding from AARP, no one has touched his
No.
records in his division.
Right, those, he was doing long jump. Let me see, his record is 12.5.75 feet in the long jump. Again, that's 82, 83 years old. So, he still holds those records today.
He still holds the
Still
record.
holds the records. I think those records, he set those records in Pittsburgh, one of the National Senior Games Association events.
Wow. I think we have a picture of your father
Yes.
here. You brought some pictures here. And we want to see. Here is Charles Motlin Sr. with all his glory around his neck.
He made me so proud. My mom also, and she was a school teacher. She actually was the only African American female school teacher in the entire county.
Wow.
She went back to get her education at age 40 with 5 kids, she was raising. But he's pictured in a Northwestern University Medical School shirt, which is where I graduated from. But I actually had him deliver the benediction and invocation for our graduating class because I was so proud of him. And he did a remarkable job to be able to go up and do something like that at a graduation ceremony.
This is wonderful. And I also read that he had on his shirt, he wore his favorite Bible
Sure.
verse?
Yeah, Isaiah 40:31.
Yeah.
And basically it says, those that wait upon the Lord shall mount up with wings, and you know, the verse actually encourage us to trust in the Lord, to help get us through our struggles, our daily struggles. And that's really what it all comes down to. His message was, we can't think that we as human beings, mere mortals, can solve all of our problems. We actually need help and guidance from Jesus Christ. And so that's why he wore that Bible verse, Isaiah 40:31. Trust in the Lord.
And I also know he would always tell, he would come up to me, he says, what is God? And he taught, God is love. He
Right.
says, that's right.
Yeah, he would be actually so proud of you to actually even remember that.
Right. Yeah.
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 So he would actually try to trick people sometimes with that question, yeah.
Yeah, he did.
He wanted to hear the right answer.
But he was a great human being. I can testify to that. Although I didn't know him in his younger state, but and it's a strong resemblance there. You look just
Sure.
like him.
No, he's my inspiration, even today. Sometimes, some days are difficult, and I call upon him for guidance, and I know that he would want me to give back to the community also. That's actually, he's the reason why we have the Minority Men's Health Center and Health Fair. He was the impetus behind it, and he's the one that taught me the importance of it's not good enough for me just to be a physician and serve patients. I need to actually go the extra mile and actually serve the community and utilize whatever education I've been fortunate to have acquired to give back to the community.
Right, just like he ran that extra mile around the park.
Right.
Right. And Dr. Marlin, I know every spring, is it the spring that you have this Minority Men's Health
Yes,
screening?
it's generally in April. April is Minority Health Month. And so our upcoming health fair is going to be our 9th annual Minority Men's Health Fair, Thursday, April the 7th, at 5:30, from 5:30 to 8:30. It's at the main campus of the Cleveland Clinic Glickman Tower. Last year we had probably nearly 4,000 men show
Wow.
up. And it's all for free screenings, head to toe, comprehensive health screenings, health education, follow-up, as needed. It's a remarkable event. It's actually a nationally acclaimed event. First year of 2003, we had 35 men show up.
Wow.
So you can see how it's dramatically, exponentially grown over the years. And we hope to get a record turnout this year as well.
I hope you do.
Right.
Well, you know what? I hope we can get you back down here at KAZ, and maybe around the springtime
Oh,
we can promote your
Well, I'd love to.
men's screening.
But I'm actually really grateful that you chose to highlight my father, and it shows me that, by remembering him, his message was remembered.
Yes.
And will continue to be remembered. It's simple messages, trust in the Lord, one day at a time. And the importance of love also. I mean, we can do so much if we would love one another. And but I really appreciate, you honoring him in this fashion.
Oh, that's a great guy.
Yeah.
And you're a great guy
Oh,
for
appreciate
coming
it.
down.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Okay.
Marlin.
Appreciate it.
Does anybody know that tonight? Oh, see, he is mine, and I am his. Said it doesn't matter